Alright, so here I have P equals 2L plus 2W, and I have to solve for W. So when it says to solve for W, basically you want W by itself here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away all of these stuff here from the right hand side of the equation, so I could have W by itself. So I'm going to take here this 2L out, and when you take 2L from one side, you have to take it from the other side. So this is now gone, and on my right hand side I'm going to have 2W, and then on the left hand side I'm going to have my P still, because that didn't move, minus 2L. Now there's still a 2 beside the W, so I have to divide by 2 to get rid of that 2, and when you do it to one side you have to do it to the other side as well. So that's going to cross out my 2 here. I'm going to be left with just W on my right hand side, and then my left hand side I'm going to have P over 2 minus, and then this 2 here then cancels out the 2 that's beside the L, and then I'm left with just L. So that W is going to equal to P over 2 minus L. Now in this example I have A equals B, C, D, and I have to solve for D. So looking at this, I have B and C being multiplied to D. So all I have to do to solve for D, I just have to divide by that BC to get rid of the BC here because it's being multiplied by D. So the opposite is dividing. So I'm going to divide by BC. What you do to one side, you must do to the other side. So I'm going to divide by BC here. This cancels out the BC on my right hand side, and what I'm left with is just D on the right hand side, and then A over BC, and that's the answer. So here I have V equals 5 in brackets A minus 2. So you could do it two ways. You could distribute this 5 and then solve for A, or you could just see that what 5 is doing is it's being multiplied by all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 5 here, divide by 5 here. By dividing this whole equation by 5, this crosses out the 5 on this side. Okay? Then I'm left with just A minus 2, I could drop the brackets now, V over 5. Then I just have to get rid of this minus 2, so I'm going to add by 2 on one side and then add by 2 on the other. So that cancels out the 2 on the right hand side, and I'm left with V over 5, I don't have to touch that, add by 2 equals A. Alright, so here I have A equals minus BC divided by D, and I have to solve for B. So in order to do that, I have to isolate B by itself. So right now I see that B is being divided by D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply it by D on both sides. So that cancels out the D on the right hand side. Then I'm left with just minus BC, and then on this side I have AD. Now B is not yet by itself, so I'm going to divide it by C so I could get rid of this C here. So that C is gone, and I'm left with C on the other side. So what I have now is minus B AD over C. Now B is still not by itself because there's a minus sign by B. So I'm going to divide it by -1 from one side and divide it by -1 on the other side to get rid of that negative sign. And then I'm just left with negative AD over C equals to B. And that here is my answer. Alright, so here I have 3x minus 2y equals 12, and I have to solve for y. But I have to write my answer in the form of y equals mx plus b. Don't be confused about this m and b that's over here. M and b, these are just numbers. Alright? The x is actually this x over here, and this y is this y over here. And whatever numbers beside x is the m, and whatever number that you have to add or minus by in the rest is just b. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So first I have to isolate y. Right now I have 3x on the the left hand side. I have to bring it over to the right hand side. I'm just going to move it up here. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to minus 3x on one side, minus 3x on the other side. That's going to now get rid of the 3x on the left hand side. So I'm going to be left with minus 2y equals, now notice that the x has to come before the number. So I'm going to have this negative 3x. It's going to go before my 12 plus 12. Okay. Now I still have negative 2 beside y. Okay, and notice here there is no letter beside the y, so that means y has to be by itself. So I'm going to divide negative 2 here, and I'm going to divide negative 2 from every single term to get rid of this negative 2 in the left hand side. So I'm left with now y equaling, now a negative and a negative becomes a positive. So I'm going to have positive 3x over 2. A positive and a negative becomes a negative. So I'm going to have negative here. 12 divided by 2, well, that's 6. And then now notice that I have my y, and then I have my x here. Here's my x. M is my 3 over 2 minus b. B is my 6. Okay? Alright, so here I have f equals 9 over 5c minus 32. And I have to solve for c. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to keep c on the right hand side. So I'm going to take away this negative 32 by adding 32 because I have to do the opposite. What you do to one side you must do to the other side. So I'm going to have no more negative 32 in the right hand side, and I'm going to have f plus 32 equals 9 over 5c. Now I want to take away this 9 over 5. So I'm going to, I could divide by 9 over 5, but that's too complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it into 2 steps. I'm going to multiply by 5, and then I'm going to multiply each term here by 5. And that's going to take away my 5 on the right hand side. On the left hand side, I'm going to have 5f. 32 times by 5 is 160. Equals 9c. Now I'm going to divide every term by 9 so I could get rid of this 9 and c could be by itself. So I'm going to divide this by 9, this by 9, and this by 9. That's going to cancel out my 9 on the right hand side, and I'm left with just c on the right hand side. Then I'm going to have 5f over 9 add by 160 over 9. And I can't reduce that anymore, so I'm just going to leave it as is.